All right, so you think you know this story, The Wolf and the Seven Young Kids. But trust me, we're going deeper than ever before.
Buckle up.
Yeah, it's a Grimm fairy tale, so we know there's going to be some dark stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it's amazing how much is packed into these seemingly simple stories. We're going all the way back to the original German text
Der Wolf und die 7 jungen Geißlein.
to get the real original flavor here.
Yeah, what grabs me right away is how the story just jumps right into the deception. Like, no messing around.
Straight to it.
The mom, the mother goat, she warns those kids so specifically.
Yeah, not just like, hey, watch out for strangers, but really specific stuff.
I think she's giving them a fairy tale criminal profile.
Heh.
Like, here's exactly what to watch for.
Right, rough voice, black feet. Like, she knows exactly what this wolf's going to try.
She's almost like she's got insider information. Makes you wonder.
Like, how does she know?
But it's that level of detail that I think makes it applicable to deception, even outside of, fairy tale land.
Oh, for sure.
Con artists, think about how they work.
Oh, yeah.
Building trust, creating a persona.
It's all about that.
Or camouflage in nature, right?
Huh?
Hiding your true intentions.
Blending in.
Makes you think, is it more effective, do you think, to change how you appear or how you sound if you really want to pull off a deception?
Ooh, that's a good question for our listeners out there. I like that.
Ponder that one.
But, okay, back to the story. This wolf's no dummy. Right. He takes that mom's warning as a challenge. Like, oh, yeah, watch this.
Exactly. He doesn't just show up with, a half-baked plan. This wolf is dedicated to his craft.
He puts in the work.
Oh, yeah. Eats chalk to soften his voice, covers his black paw with dough.
That's commitment.
It's kind of creepy, honestly, when you think about it. Like, this is planned out. He's targeting kids.
It is a little unsettling, you're right. Like, he's studied deception. He's figured out the weak points. And to their credit, the kids, they're not just blindly following orders, right?
Mm-hmm.
They question him. They want proof.
That's the part that always gets me, that detail up at the paw on the window. They're like, okay, voice is fine, but show us the goods. Visual confirmation was key.
They needed that evidence, not just taking things at face value.
It's all about critical thinking, even for kids. They're showing us how it's done.
Makes you think about, well, everything we encounter online these days, right?
Oh, yeah.
Information overload. This story is like a reminder to be like those kids. Skeptical, demand proof, question everything.
Don't just take things at face value, that's
Yeah.
right. Sadly for these kids, though, their skepticism only goes so far. The wolf, he gets in.
Yeah.
And, well, things get dark.
Yeah, no way around it. He eats them. All but one, the little guy hiding in the clock. And it's interesting how the story really focuses on that act of eating, not the killing itself.
Yeah, you don't get the blood and gore description.
Right, no graphic violence.
It's almost like the Brothers Grimm wanted the weight of the act to sink in without, traumatizing everyone.
It's still horrifying, but, toned down for the time, maybe.
Which, given when this story came from, is pretty interesting, right? Back then, threats to kids, they were real, they were constant. This wouldn't have just been a fantasy, it would have tapped into very real anxieties.
Right, right. So it's horror, but a particular kind of horror, I guess. And then we have the mother goat coming home. Can you imagine coming home to that? Your safe space completely violated.
Ugh, it's heartbreaking,
Yeah.
but she doesn't just fall apart,
She's got stuff to do.
Oh, yeah. Grief, yeah, but it fuels her. She's immediately like, gotta find my kids. And then gotta deal with that wolf.
No time to waste.
No fainting, no waiting for a prince to show up. She is taking charge.
Which, now that you mention it, that's kind of a running theme in these Grimm tales, right? The moms, they're the resourceful ones, the ones protecting their families no matter what.
It's definitely a pattern worth noting. And it speaks to, I think, how these stories reflected, in their own fantastical way, how strong women often had to be in those times.
Right, yeah. Facing real-life stuff. And her solution, well, let's just say it's both clever and super unsettling. She finds the wolf, belly, all huge and, suspiciously moving. And she decides to take matters into her own hands, literally.
Scissors, needle thread, DIY surgery time.
It's graphic, yeah, but again, you don't get the gory details. The focus is on her resourcefulness, her willingness to do whatever it takes to save her kids.
She's a surgeon, a rescuer, a total mama bear.
And out pop those 6 kids perfectly fine. It's both disturbing and heartwarming all at once.
Definitely both.
And speaking of disturbing, let's talk about what happens to the wolf.
Oh, yeah. Time for some grim justice, and it's not pretty.
No, it's not. Filling his belly with stones while he's still alive. brutal.
But you gotta remember the context, right? Totally different ideas about justice back then. This wasn't just entertainment. It was reflecting, maybe even reinforcing societal norms.
Right. This is how things were done.
Exactly. And then there's that irony of how he dies, thirst.
Yeah, after all that gluttony.
Yeah. Makes you wonder, did he deserve such a gruesome fate? It's almost like the story leaves it open for us to decide. What do you think?
Good question. And to make it even more unsettling, right, the story ends with the kids dancing around the well where he drowned. That's a choice. Joy and horror all mixed together.
Doesn't quite give you that clean, happy ending, does it? But that's what's so fascinating about these Grimm tales. They don't shy away from the moral ambiguity. This isn't just like good guys versus bad guys. It leaves you with these uncomfortable questions.
Yeah, it's more than just like a lesson about don't talk to strangers, right? This is about deception, about justice, about the role of parents, all in this deceptively simple package.
Exactly. And it's those layers of meaning that keep us coming back to these stories, even centuries later.
They stick with you. Okay, we've covered a lot here, but we're just getting started.
Welcome back.
All right, so we left off with, some pretty intense stuff.
Yeah, we did.
But, it's not just the plot that makes this story so interesting, right? It's all the symbolism, the stuff underneath.
Oh, absolutely. It's layered, like a good cake.
Exactly.
Take the wolf's transformation, for instance. It's not just a physical disguise, is it? It goes deeper than that.
Right. It's not just like throwing on a hat. He makes his voice fine and lovely, like mimicking what a caring mom would sound like.
Yeah, that's chilling. He's playing on those kids' deepest desires. That's straight up manipulation.
Whoa, that's heavy.
It is, but it's a tactic we see in real life all the time, unfortunately. Think about how abusers use manipulation, gaslighting,
Yeah, wow.
to control their victims, make them question their own reality.
So the wolf, he's not just hungry, he's intentionally exploiting the kids' vulnerability, their longing for their mom.
Exactly. And that longing, that's what makes them susceptible to the deception. It's a good reminder that even when we're trying to be cautious, our emotions, they can make us vulnerable.
They can definitely cloud our judgment.
It happens to the best of us.
It's good to check in with ourselves, make sure we're not letting emotions totally run the show, but okay, let's talk about the mother goat. She's often seen as this, symbol of maternal love. Which, yeah, of course, but there's more to her than that, isn't there?
Oh, way more. She is strong, resourceful. She doesn't just, sit around and cry.
She gets things done.
She takes charge, confronts the wolf head on.
No waiting around for someone to save her.
Exactly. She embodies this recurring theme we see in fairy tales, the power of mothers as protectors, as problem solvers.
She's like the knight in shining armor, only her armor is maybe a little more DIY.
Right.
We see this in other stories too, right? Like Vasilisa the Wise from those Russian tales, or even like moms in more modern stories like Coraline. They're all facing down crazy odds to protect their kids.
It's a powerful pattern.
Yeah.
And her solution, cutting open the wolf's belly, that's not just a rescue. It's like this huge image of defiance.
You mess with the wrong mama.
Yeah. She's taking back control, showing that evil doesn't win. But then there's that ending, right? After all that, the kids dancing around the well where the wolf drowned. It's almost cheerful, but it feels off.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Like, is that really a happy ending?
That's the thing with this story. It doesn't give you a neat little bow to tie things up. It leaves you with this lingering sense of unease. Like, yeah, justice happened, but at what cost? And how do those kids even begin to move on after something like that?
Right. It makes you think about the psychological impact, even in a fairy tale. Trauma is real. And then there's that whole question of the cycle of violence. Is filling the wolf with stones and letting him drown really a solution? Or is it just continuing the cycle?
These are questions the story asks, but doesn't necessarily answer.
Yeah, it leaves it up to us.
And that ambiguity, I think that's part of why it's so powerful, why it stays with us. It forces us to grapple with these complex issues, to look at the darker parts of ourselves and our world. It's not a simple moral lesson. It's more like an invitation to really think.
It's messy, just like life is messy.
Exactly.
But speaking of messy, how about this? This story, with all its darkness and violence, has been passed down, adapted for centuries. What do you think that says about us?
That's a good question.
It really is fascinating, huh? This story. I mean, all the darkness, the violence, And it's still here. It's like it's speaking to something deep in us, maybe.
I think you're onto something.
Yeah.
And it's not just that it survived, it's how it keeps changing.
Shifting. Yeah.
It's like a chameleon blending into different times and places.
Right. Like, think about how many versions for kids these days, they tone down all that scary stuff.
Oh, yeah. Instead of like wolf belly surgery, he maybe falls in a well or gets tricked in some way.
Right. Something a little less intense.
Makes sense, though, right?
Yeah.
Our ideas about what's okay for kids to hear, they've definitely changed since the Grimm brothers were writing.
Oh, yeah. A lot less stomach cutting in children's books these days. But even in the gentler versions, like, the ideas are still there, right? Be careful, think for yourself, don't believe everything you hear.
Exactly. The core message survives.
Mhm.
It's like the story itself grew up alongside us, finding new ways to be relevant.
That's a good way to put it. And it's not just kids' stuff either. You got operas, ballets, cartoons, all based on this one tale.
Pretty amazing. And each one of those, it gives you a slightly different angle, right? Highlights a different part of the story.
Ooh, yeah. Like, you might see a version where the wolf is this, like, smooth-talking con man, really emphasizing that manipulation side of things.
Or maybe they focus on the kids themselves.
Right, right.
How brave they were, how they survived that trauma.
So many ways to tell it.
It's a testament to how good that original story is. It's flexible, It can hold all these different meanings without losing what makes it special.
So, okay, what does this all mean for us today? I mean, sure, we're not going to run into talking wolves at our doorsteps, but, like, those lessons, they still matter, don't they?
I think so. Well, it's like a reminder, right? To pay attention, to question what we see and hear, especially with, everything going on online, all the misinformation.
Oh, yeah. Fact-checking is important.
We got to be like those kids, demanding proof.
Yeah.
Thinking for ourselves.
Right. Don't be fooled by the wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak.
Exactly. But it's also a story about community, The kids, they survive because they have each other and because their mother fights so hard to get them back.
Yeah, good point. It's not just about being strong on your own. It's about those connections we have, how they help us through the tough stuff.
I think that's something worth remembering.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into The Wolf and the Seven Young Kids, I want to leave you with something to think about, listener. What if this version, the one we've been talking about, the original, the gritty stuff, what if that was the one kids heard today? How would it hit them? Would it freak them out, make them think? Would it make them feel more, I don't know, more powerful maybe? It's something to consider, isn't it? Thanks for joining us.